Welcome back, everybody. We hope for this session to conclude today the 49th chapter. We're holding pretty much towards the end. About 6 lines from the bottom of the end of the chapter on page Ayin. Shezeu tachlis haishtalshelus kol ha'olamis. This is the ultimate purpose of the evolution of all worlds. These kved Hashem malikol ha'oretz, that the honor of Hashem should be filled this very land. Halazu dafka, precisely this very land. So, where is he coming from? So, as we always mention, that we are able to rather focus on the take all the time to learn further, even though we always have to find a connecting point from week to week. But ultimately, with today's technology, that it's a click away, as you can see it on this very website, tanyaonline.com. Just look at the previous class and you're able to immediately see the flow of this page with the previous classes on this very chapter. There was quite a few to understand this important message that Alter Rebbe is conveying on this very chapter, and to understand how it flows with these very words, comes straight into these words, such as Zeu tachas ishtalshelus kol ha'olamis. This is the ultimate objective and purpose of the evolution of all worlds, that the honor of Hashem should be filled in this land. Now, but a bit, we always try to make a little bit of the connecting point, to connect the previous class with the present. So the Alter Rebbe is speaking about the importance, the essentiality of uttering the words of Torah when one learns Torah. So, and where is he coming from? He's coming from ultimately the learning Torah itself. That is the yichud, real yichud Chabad b'Chabad, true intimacy of a Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through learning Torah. That's why after the Yid says the ponders and meditates in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, he appreciates the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As such, consequently, Hashem Elokecha, he loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all his heart, with all his soul, with all his might. What is the next pasuk? Hashem Elokecha, because you have a fervorous passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you're right away learning Torah, because Torah is the consummation of that love. Torah is actually the actual intimate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as he explains and elaborates again in the previous class, in this very page. And so, but yet he continues. He said, nonetheless, it's important not only and we explained last week again what's the idea of limit HaTorah, because Torah is about depth, as he says, iyun HaTorah, appreciating, understanding, delving in deeply into the matters of Torah, which is again tantamount to the idea of this particular yichud, this dafkas rucha berucha, the yichud Chabad b'Chabad. How it ultimately, as the Eitz Chaim expresses, and that this is in his Sefer, notes in his Sefer in Eitz Chaim, that this is the true expression of oneness, intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But yet, Alter Rebbe says, it's important that the person utters the words of Torah as well. He verbalizes the words of Torah when he learns. So basically, it's a Gemara, I believe in Tractate Eruvin, it says, Chaim Helam Mitzi'eim Bepeh, that when you utter the way to learn Torah is you have to utter the words of Torah, as we spoke again. As you see, when you see people learning Torah, you always hear them learning loudly. It's not like you're going into a library. People are looking into things, again, with mind, and in other words, the thought and deep thought and mind and understanding and appreciation and perception, rather, on the matters that they are looking into, which is kind of the library image. And you come into yeshiva, to the contrary, you hear kind of a tumultuous sound of a bunch of people who are sitting and loudly and not only talking Torah, arguing, not chas v'shalom and true argument, but you hear the voices of Torah. Kol Yaakov. Torah is about uttering the words as well. That's part and parcel of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Even though primarily Torah is about understanding, make no mistake, it's about understanding. It's about perfectly understanding the subject you're learning. That's the real idea of Torah. But nonetheless, Torah itself, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the Eibishter wants it also to be uttered with one's words. And again, as we elaborated on this last week, so the point is, here the Alter Rebbe says, why? What's so special about the words? Because ultimately, this is taking the deeper soul streams, if you will, connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We understand, we could all appreciate that. Perceiving something in contrast, understanding, thinking about something in contrast to uttering it is something which is more of an inner experience. To becomes a outer experience means it becomes something which is there to be it's a descent, it's a degradation from the way the idea is in one's mind, which is again more of an inward experience, as opposed to when you speak it out, you're taking something, you're bringing it out, emerging it, you're bringing it into words. You're bringing it more into. It becomes somewhat of a dimension of tangibility, if you will, in comparison to the way it's b'machshava, or to the way it's in your seichel, in your intellect. And what do we gain? Because we're bringing it into a state of manifestation, a state of revelation. What it does is, in the end of the day, it becomes more part of the experience of the human being. In other words, the human being is a structure which has so many different faculties. You have the more inner faculties, the more nuanced soul type of faculties, which is heart, mind. Zaltrab even says in the chapter 20 that in heart, in emotions, in Chabad, in intellect, there's not even isis, there's no structured words. In other words, where do you see it becoming more and more part of the human experience when it comes down into words or action? In this case, it's naturally Taitas about words, but for example, there's a great emphasis that mitzvahs are actualized, executed in action. They're actualized means to say that the mitzvah is not Hashem, I love to know the inner meaning of matzah, or the inner meaning of mezuzah and tefillin, and maybe from time to time I'll put it on also. But namely, it's the rich experience, and it's the thought, what stands behind the mitzvah, and its meaning, its intent, and so on and so forth. Hashem says, no, that's all good and fine. And it's wonderful if you have kavanah and certain mitzvahs, even though, the famous argument of mitzvahs tzrichas kavanah, they need, it's part, is it essential that one has the kavanah or not? But in the end of the day, everybody agrees that ultimately the mitzvah is about performing the mitzvah, actualizing the mitzvah, bringing it into action. Torah is about it's about doing. Why so? Why the emphasis about doing? Apparently, it's true. It's more about the human beings involved. It's the involvement of the ish, the human being. In other words, as a person, the fact that everything kolatz meisei tamarna, everything is involved in tamarna, is that particular expression is the idea of davening, praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we notice in Torah mitzvahs, it's not about leaving the inferior faculties and just tapping into them periodically, but namely it's about the connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our rich faculties. Quite to the contrary, the significant majority of our mitzvahs is with action, which is again the full expression of the humanness, the human being. And why so? Why is it so important? Answer: because what Hashem wants. Why did He create this world in the first place? Because He wanted a physical reality, a lowly, tachtenim literally means a lowly creation to be transformed and to be refined, transformed, sublimated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Hashem's greatest appreciation was of more of a deeper type of relationship with Him, which means more a sensational relationship, an intellectual relationship, and so on. He never had to create the human being in the first place. He could have stopped right there, and even El Mayitzira, El Mabriya, even get better, maybe beyond. Neshama is where exist the souls, malachim divested of body. Nothing of associated with the Hagsham of Elam Hazah, the physicality and the probably maybe even beyond physicality, the mundaneness, the crassness of Elam Hazah, which is associated with the human being. In other words, the dimension of the human being is his body, his animal soul, his body. What do we need that for? If Hashem would appreciate more of a refined relationship, he could have stopped by the angels. And even now, when he went further, the angels continue to serve him, as we say it every day in davening. But Hashem says, no, that's not where my great pleasure is, not in this very elevated, refined or elevated or celestial type of service. Hashem says, I'm leaving that, even though what makes sense is that Hashem should appreciate that over the avodah of the yid, over dealing with the yid, which is a neshama invested in body, which has to deal with a bodily reality, has to deal with an nefesh bahamis, animalistic reality, as we're all aware. We all know this very well, that most of us are not angels, most of us are not angelic. So this is pretty much the message of this very page earlier, that Hashem left that and he said, Avas Eilam Avtanu, that he connected precisely with Eilam, and he says, where's my pleasure? Daf precisely here, and this is the reason why he created this Eilam Hazeh, and not only Eilam Ha'asiyah, but Eilam Hazeh Gashmi, She'ein Tach L'matei Meno, a crass and gross world, if you will, to be bold. And Hashem puts the Yid there, and he says, I want you to serve me, because in the end of the day, what is the ultimate purpose of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in creating the entire system, from Atzilus to Bria to Yitzirah to Asiyah, is because he wants to reach the Asiyah, because Nis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liz Le'Dira B'Tachteinim. Hashem had a desire to have a dwelling place precisely B'Tachteinim, in this very physical world, not on the worlds on high. To the contrary, not from the experience of the worlds on high, as the Alter Rebbe explains us in Perek Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, and Tanya, that because the whole establishment of any Eilam, even a refined Eilam, elevated Eilam, a sublime Eilam, nonetheless a world it is, and it's already a Yerida, a great descent from the great light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way He forms by Himself, beyond even being a creator of any Eilam, even Eilam Atzilus. So the whole Eilam Atzilus, a Yerida B'Leis Baruch. Again, click away to see the beautiful message in Alter Rebbe, Lamed Vav and Lamed Zayin. And it goes on, but there the crux of the whole entire message of the Hoyil V'Lohem by Atzilus is a Yerida of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where is the whole essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Dafka b'Tachteinim, Dafka in this very physical world. And therefore He created this world. And therefore the way to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the way to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is precisely through mitzvahs, because if you follow the pattern of that very plan, of that very establishment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the very the establishment by HaKadosh Baruch Hu that this world, Eilam HaMaisa of Adira B'Tachteinim, is the ultimate goal and the ultimate objective. So when we have to bring that ultimate objective to fruition, ultimately it's about doing the mitzvahs, fulfilling Hashem's mitzvahs, which is about action, elevating the parchment and making it now parchment, which belongs to tefillin, taking this, which is ultimately the skin of an animal, becoming parchment, becoming part of tefillin, the skin of the animal becoming part of a sefer Torah, the ink parting becoming part of the mezuzah, tefillin, sefer Torah as well, the wool becoming part of the mitzvah of tzitzis. All this is dealing very much with the physical world. It's the lulav, the esrog, trumas, meisers. It's all about elevating the physical world, because that's the ultimate objective and the ultimate goal. So the same thing when we focus on that particular mitzvah of Limudat Torah, which is the message over here, it's not only enough to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this very deep and true, as they say, the lashon is dabkas rucha berucha, this true intimate connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by understanding the idea of Torah. In other words, that our intellect have as a whole a total grasp on this which we learn. And the deeper I understand, the deeper I connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The deeper there's these dabkas rucha berucha, the deeper the intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu granted. But if you step back a bit and we say, oh, it's about that, well, there's greater and perhaps deeper relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be on high if we measure it about depth and about a sensitive relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a inward type of relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu which is about a yichud Chabad b'Chabad. Perhaps that could be on high as well. But Hashem didn't want all that. Therefore, we created this very physical world. So in this very microcosmic experience, or microcosmically in this very experience of the Yid learning Torah, Hashem also wants it to come down into his actual faculties. In other words, if it's not action, but nonetheless speech is a minimal type of action as well, moving one's lips. But anybody could appreciate bringing it to speech is bringing it more into the tangibility of Elam Hazah, or the tangibility within the system of the person himself. And therefore it's important not only to have the idea of understanding Torah, but it's also important to bring it into words, because as he goes back, he says, because everything has to be elevated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And more so, he says, the human being is sustained from all the daimim tzemei of the entire world. How does a person eat? How does a person live? It's because of the tomatoes that he ate and the bread and the cucumbers or whatever he ate in order to keep him alive. So when he utters these words of Torah, ultimately everything is being elevated, perhaps, and naturally even more than when he's appreciating the Torah on the level of Chabad and the level of intellect. Because this is really the core human being, his action, his speech, and this is ultimately sustained from all these elements within Elam Hazah, and therefore everything is elevated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's the idea that the speech, in comparison to thought, that's more about the tangibility of the Elam Hazah and the way it's expressed by the person himself. The more the human being, the more the Adam, the fact that he speaks as opposed to the expression in speech as opposed to the expression in nuanced expression, or the deep expression in mind, but also because the human being, as a human being, is sustained from Daim Tzmei Chai Medaber. And where is the human being more expressed in speech and in action? So that takes the entire Elam Hazah, which is meant to be elevated, and indeed elevated when the person invests his speech and his action in this connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because make no mistake, in the end of the day, we never lose sight of that ultimate plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he wants his honor revealed here in this very physical world, that there's very physical flesh is able to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem, when Mashiach will come again, which is the culmination, the fruition, the Gilui Kved Hashem V'ro Kol Basar, the very physical flesh will see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the ultimate purpose, and this is where he continues. You can see more of it in the previous classes. This is the ultimate purpose of the evolution of all the worlds. That the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is filled this very physical world in a revealed, manifest manner, to transform darkness into light, and bitterness into sweetness, like we learned before, we mentioned before, Barichas at length. And this is the ultimate objective of the person in his service, and this is supposed to be the ultimate intent of the person in his service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lahamshich, not removal, not the Torah mitzvahs exemplified by removing oneself, coming closer to one's inner sensitive, subtle faculties within the person himself, or B'chlal Am Yisrael, removing themselves from the reality of Elam Hazeh. The ultimate purpose of the Yid in his service, based on the entire reason why Hashem created the entire world, Dafka Elam Hazeh Tachta, because Misav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lidira B'Tachteinim, Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this very physical world. As such, that's meant to be the kavanah, the intent of the human, of the person, B'Avidoseh, in his service, Laham Shechein Tzah Baruch Hu L'mata, to draw Hashem down here in the physical world, and that's the ultimate purpose. So the Alter Rebbe right now goes to literally the last line of this chapter. If that's the case, so what do we need to daven? Why do we need to have that experience of aliyah memata l'mayla, the idea of davening, a person losing himself into the experience of that oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is again the ha'alah, the aliyah within the person. If it's all about amshach, if it's all about drawing the lukus down, even that Torah, you can say it's really the core where you touch the divine, but in the end of the day, you're saying the Midat Torah is also about bringing the Elokus down here, Lamata, in the person's speech, and then he's supposed to follow by action to do what Hashem wants, and so on and so forth, which is drawing the Elokus Lamata into Elam Hazeh, fulfilling the ultimate purpose of Hashem's creation, of Hashem creating this very physical world, Hashem's kavod, rather, which is Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu Lisle Dir B'Tachtenim, Hashem wanting a dwelling place in this very physical world. So why do we need any expression within our, in the context of our serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why do we need of the idea of davening, for example, or anything, Yom Kippur davening? Why within the system there is also this idea of removal, that one removes himself from the realities of Elam Hazeh and elevates himself higher and yet higher and yet higher to touch and connect to the divine, which is really, we think about davening, that's what davening is all about. Sulam Mutzav Artzav V'Reishim Meki Hashamayim. It's about a ladder. A person wakes up in the morning. He is that sulam, that ladder, which is Mutzav Art, so well anchored into Eretz, as we all know, and he starts climbing that ladder rung after rung. It says in Kabbalah, in many Sfarim, every level of davening is another rung, till he comes and stands with a total bittul b'mitzias ka'avdi kavamara, like a servant in front of his master, which is again the climactic state of a yid's expression in his tefillah, which is the tefillah of Amidah of Shemoneh Esrei. And in the Lashon Shulchan Aruch, a person is supposed to reach his spashtus hagashmis, completely ridding the whole connection to Gashmis. That's what davening is all about. But I thought it was about drawing Elokus down lamata, not the hala milmata lamayla, from down, in other words, ascending on high, to the extent of his spashtus hagashmis. What's that supposed to mean? How does that fit in the picture of Hashem wanting a dira le'yizbarach b'tachteinim, having a dwelling place in this very physical world? And so to other expressions throughout the year. We mentioned Yom Kippur. Other times also, there's a time when the person removes himself. And who says that's so important? Well, that's a mitzvah in the Torah. Like the Gemara says, Torah said, I want you to serve me. It says that's tefillah, that's prayer. The more the world stands on three pillars. So Torah is about like we just said, especially uttering the words of Torah, and namely the way it follows mitzvahs, which is again Gemilus Chasadim. Even though Gemilus Chasadim is about expression of kindness, but in the end of the day, it says many svarim, this is a mitzvah, this is a terminology, a mitzvah which encapsulates all mitzvahs. But what about that Aveda part? Why does the world stand on Aveda? Apparently it's just an opposite message of bringing Elokus, the Ein Sof, down here Lamata. Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu Lisle Dir B'Tachtenim. How does that work? And why is it such an essential and crucial part of our holy Torah? And the world stands in Aveda just like it stands on Torah. You can excuse me for a quick second. And the simple answer is, we're talking about, in the end of the day, a true relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not a robotic relationship. Even drawing Elokus, Melmaila Lamata, is not, okay, Hashem, I did the mitzvah, so I elevated, I refined this piece of parchment, the skin of the animal, that it became this leather, and then I made it part of the tefillin. Because you're dealing with a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to trigger within HaKadosh Baruch Hu the interest that he should want to come down. He should want to be part of this reality of bringing his energy down into Elam Hazeh. In other words, it's about making HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, truly drawing the excitement, if you will, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be part of Elam Hazeh. That's the point of Dira B'Tachtenim, as it says in a number of places. They wish to want a lichtike Dira, a bright Dira, that I just truly feel comfortable in this very physical place. So someone, just like we find that, there's our rules in Torah. If wants to deal with the I'll do some bunch of stuff, not in its time, not in its place. This is what you want. The physical should be transformed. No, that's what we have halacha, for example, because there's precision in the way we perform a mitzvah. We eat matzah precisely on the night of the 14th, coming into the 15th, not any other night. Why is that? Because in the end of the day, for that matter, this idea that of the detailed and nuanced rules and regulations in Torah contribute to this idea that in the end of the day, Hashem says, I really want to feel comfortable here. It's like you go into certain places and it's supposed to be looking holy, and somewhat it doesn't feel very holy. Now, who's the one to say what feels what doesn't feel? But sometimes the intuition really is connected to places which stands beyond the rational structure of man. The intuition says a lot with the human being, and not always we're correct, but the idea is that you find a place which is holy, or you feel a sensation of holiness, or things which look holy. They're meant to look holy, but they're not necessarily feeling, the sensation is not necessarily a holy sensation. And sometimes it's very much within the context of Torah mitzvahs as well. People are performing Torah mitzvahs, and it's you don't sense that something really divine and sacred is unfolding over here. So again, we're not talking about man measuring the accomplishment of man and accomplishment of another yid. We're just getting to this idea, so using it as an example, that in the end of the day, when you're dealing with a relationship, it's not something that you just push buttons and you call out for something, and then something comes and something heads forth, and something in this context ends up coming down to this world because I pushed a certain button. That's not the way relationships work. And this is a very important message over here that Alter Rebbe is saying, which tells us why the essentiality of davening, or all these expression of halo asman, leaving, elevating oneself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because, and we could appreciate in a relationship in every single level, a spousal relationship, a student, a child, parent and child, student and master, in every level, master, as servant and master, subject and king, but like in a spousal relationship, it's not that there's a certain closeness which comes because of a certain robotic buttons are pushed, opening up a program, another program, changing a room. There's something sensational has to always take place in a constant basis in order that the relationship should should be maintained. In other words, that the relationship should be a healthy relationship. And the same thing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because you're dealing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu needing to finding himself comfortable in a place. You walk into a home, and this is a home which Hashem says, and everybody has to be honest, is Hashem comfortable with my domain? Is he comfortable with my room, my dining room? Is he comfortable with my entire home? Is it a place that he could walk in and say, or he can say, maybe better than other places, but it's not that, When we're dealing with Dir B'Tachteinim, a dwelling place for Hashem, it's a place where Hashem has to say, this is my home. And more so, as it says, remember, the place of Chassidus to be not only a Dir, but a Lichtik Dir. It's like someone coming home to his own home. It's not only, okay, this is my home, this is my address, and therefore I probably feel okay when I come in. Not necessarily. It has to be a place where you call home. When you say you call a place home, this is a place that you're done with your day. You come into your dining room, you kick off your shoes, and you're sitting. One would do that, let's say, just as an expression of comfort and feeling himself back to himself. A whole day he was conforming and to other realities which are fine and good, and that's the way which makes him the money, his parnasa, and other things which he gains through that interaction with the entire world around him. But where does he feel back at home, in his own home? So it's not only because that's the address, it's because there's a special and unique, unparalleled spirit and ambiance in that place, which fits that address that he comes in. He says, Hashem, when we say he has to have a dir b'tachteinim, a dwelling place in this physical world, it's the same thing. He has to feel, I love this. This is where I really want to be. And this is a place which fulfills my taiva. my lust, my inner covet to have a dira b'tachtenim. And therefore, it can, because the Yebishter has to say that, in my domain and down here in this world, it's important that it's based on a relationship with the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not only pushing a button, okay, Yebishter, now I'm learning and so on, so come down, or this. It has to be in a relationship, and a relationship has to be an inner type of, again, and that's the reason why a person feels great in his own home, because there is something unique in the whole relationship which exists with the people in his home, even with his, which imbues and infuses every part of his home. The great environment which is established through the efforts of everyone in that very domain to make that comfortable home, that's what contributes to the entire environment. And so too, when we're dealing with Hashem being comfortable in Olam Hazeh, it has to be based on a sensational type of relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has to be in a way that the Yid, Hashem should say, I want to come, I want to connect, I want to relate to this person. And therefore there has to be the call as well from the Mata, and one mevatel himself, which is basically the idea of davening. The person gets up in the morning, like the Gemara says, Al tikir bamel, a bama. The person's a bum, if you will, in the very morning, based on that Gemara. And it says, neshama ba'api, anything soulful is just ba'api in his nostrils. That's not manifest his entire body. And that's the point of davening. So that's why a person's not allowed eating before davening, because the whole point of eating is elevating the davar gashmi. How could you elevate this physical item, food item, if you yourself are not elevated? And then take a Gemara and start learning, like, Hashem, come. Why am I interested in coming there? As opposed to when a person refines himself, elevates himself, calls upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you can't call upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your fork and your kugel ebish to come to me. It's about nullifying oneself. El mi abitul oni nechiruach. Hashem says, who do I focus on? Who do I project on? The poor, the vulnerable, the one who is nechei broken spirit, a broken heart. That draws my attention. And that's the whole point of davening. The person is mevatel himself and knows himself, submits himself, climbs the ladder rung after rung. Bereishim Magiah Shemaim, you touched me, you connected to me. Now I'm interested in you, and now I'm ready to follow you, or to allow your Aveda to draw my attention and bring my core essence down here, Lamata, which would be through Limadat Torah, Kiyum Mitzvahs, and so on. But there needs to be V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. There needs to be that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There needs to be that bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to draw Hashem's attention. Hashem should truly have an interest in us. And that's why it says, Halavai Sheispalu Adam Koleim Kulei. The Gemara in Berachos, because even though it's Halavai, it's not realistic and it's not pragmatic, because at the end of the day we have to learn Torah, we have to do mitzvahs. But the Gemara is talking about the great appreciation of a Yid completely submitting himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which in terms of Kabbalah, that's called halas man, like in relationship of the feminine and the masculine. It's not that the connection on the onset comes from the masculine to the feminine. The feminine demonstrates a certain interest and a sense of vulnerability and a certain interest and a certain call for the connection with the masculine. And then the masculine follows suit. As such, the relationship is not robotic. It's real, and it's profound and everlasting. And so too with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem wants the halas man, which we are the Isha, as we mentioned many times, the great novelty of Shlomo Melech, establishing this whole relationship of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Hashem being the Isha, we being the Isha. Hashem is the ma, we are the man, the ban, which is again the similar ideas, the way it's expressed in Kavanah, mayin or mad, mayin duchrin, as opposed to mayin nukrin. That's exactly that. The contrast, the mayin nuchrin and mayin duchrin, and mayin nukvin, and mayin duchrin, which are the waters of the feminine, as opposed to the waters of the masculine. So you need, like in every relationship, halu asman, the draw, the call, the elevation of the feminine, which is again the Yid doing his Aveda, the spirit, halu, the spirit, the call of the mayin nukvin. Mayin nukvin means the feminine waters, meaning to say, the demonstration of vulnerability of the feminine, which is the idea of halah, leaving, climbing the ladder, coming closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Eibishter, I want you, I want to connect you, I love you, and so on. Which is again in this very parsha, V'ahavtas Hashem alikecha. I love you, Hashem. And that itself, again, which is in these few words, are the whole idea of davening. And then, after davening, we take out a Gemara and we learn Torah. It's a different Torah which is learned. The holy energy which exists inherently in Torah is felt. This is something which I'm drawing down. In other words, I'm turning now the cord, turning to the wheel. Until now it was calling upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, touching the divine through my expression of submission, nullification, vulnerability. And then, that's a dira b'tachtenim. Especially when I put it into words, it's a different learning. As it says in a number of places, the person should always juxtapose it, learning and davening. And it says in a number of places, even a few halachas and so on, it should always be connected to davening, because that's the consummation of that relationship in a way that we're drawing down in the part of the bigger picture of HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanting a dira b'tachtenim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can say, this is where I want to be, this is where I feel comfortable. And again, when a person puts it into words and it continues with mitzvahs, which we find it in the same parsha, ukshartum leisal yedecha, the tefillin, the mezuzah, kol mitzvah, sa'el mitzvah, sa'ashar nechi, which in the end of the day, it's all the mitzvahs. Then you're drawing a real, strong, beautiful energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and touching down this very physical world. And there the Eibishter has that true, the true appreciation and true fulfillment of that taiva, of that desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have a dira b'tachtenim, a dwelling place in this very physical world. With this we finish the chapter. Limsei nafshi, we'll finish the words as well. Nafshi ma'idi kinal, to give up HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our person's soul. And ma'ide is might, as we said before. It translates into money as well. In other words, complete submissiveness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, you're drawing Hashem's attention, demonstrating that bittul, that mesiras nefesh, self-sacrifice, that vulnerability. Hashem is drawn by that. And then you don't lose yourself solely into that, because then you realize there's the bigger picture. Hashem does not want ultimately halal, which establishes that halal is just a preparation to bringing the ultimate purpose of creation, particularly in the creation of Elam Hazagash, in this physical world, because Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu did fulfilling Hashem's taiva, Hashem's desire to have a dwelling place in this very physical world, and therefore we don't lose sight, and we say now it's about drawing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which again, that itself is part of that consummation of that connection through Yichud Chabad b'Chabad. That is the Izdabkas Baruch Hu, that is the intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it's not enough. Now I start drawing it downwards into words, which is again Yerida, into my words, which is not only part and parcel more of the human part of more part of the human being, but that it is where everything is elevated, because that's the Shtarka Tamid is able to speak and do, and again of the human being, and it, as such elevates everything which sustains that. The food he eats, the vegetable, whatever he eats, the food he eats, and so on and so forth. So everything is elevated because you're drawing HaKadosh Baruch Hu down here into this world. And then we follow with mitzvahs. Ultimately, we merit that the Nikla Kved Hashem Mashiach will come, that all will come into fruition. The honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be revealed, but not on high, but all kol basar yachdo. Every flesh will see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As it says, not only in the neshama will see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but more so, it says, ayin b'ayin, that pasuk Al Tereba brings the ultimate, but all kol basar, not only the eye, but the physical flesh will ultimately see HaKadosh Baruch Hu made. Bi b'mheira v'yameinu.